Welcome to sleepy Japan. Tonight, we drift together into a quiet story from Japan, a tale shaped by stillness, tradition, and the soft rhythm of night. Before we begin, take a slow breath in and exhale gently. Let your shoulders loosen. Let your hands rest. Let your thoughts begin to settle as the world around you softens into calm. Imagine a peaceful evening, light from a simple paper lantern drifting across the room, a cool breeze moving just beyond the window. And in the distance, a single temple bell echoing through the night. Each sound carries you deeper into rest. There is nothing you need to do now, nowhere you need to be. Just breathe and let the night open gently around you. Feel peace moving through your body, from your chest to your shoulders, to the quiet rhythm of your breath. The world outside grows silent. Only the sound of your breathing remains, and the soft promise of dreams waiting to unfold. Now, as the moon rises above the hills and the night deepens, let us begin tonight's story. A Fox's Gratitude. In a small village nestled between forested hills, where rice fields stretched like mirrors toward the horizon, there lived a man whose heart was gentle. He was not wealthy, nor was he famous, but he carried within him a simple kindness, the kind that asks for nothing in return. His days were ordinary, filled with small labors, the tending of rice fields, the mending of tools, the slow procession of dawn to dusk. But on this particular morning, as the sun climbed higher and the shadows grew short, something unexpected would unfold. He was walking along a narrow path, bordered by wild grasses and young bamboo, when he heard the sound of laughter. Not the pure laughter of joy, but something sharper, edged with cruelty. He paused, listening, and then moved quietly toward the sound. There, beneath the spreading branches of an old pine, he saw two boys crouched low, their hands gripping something small and struggling. A baby fox. Its fur was soft and russet, still bearing the downy texture of youth, and its black eyes were wide with terror. The boys were laughing, planning to sell the creature, speaking of coins and sweets, while the little fox whimpered softly. The kind-hearted man approached them slowly, his shadow falling across their small forms. "What have you there?" he asked gently. The boys looked up, startled, but then smiled with the easy confidence of children, holding up their prize. "A fox cub, sir. We caught it fair and square. We're going to sell it at the market." The man gazed down at the trembling creature and felt something stir within his chest, a quiet sadness, a gentle resolve. "How much do you want for it?" he asked. The boys looked at each other, eyes brightening. "Half a bull coin, sir, if you please." It was not a small sum, but the man reached into his sleeve without hesitation and placed the coin into their eager hands. The boys bowed quickly, awkwardly, and ran off down the path, their laughter trailing behind them like ribbons in the wind. The man stood alone, holding the small creature carefully, its body warm and fragile against his palms. Only then did he notice the blood. One of the cub's tiny paws was wounded, the fur matted and dark, and the little fox whimpered when he touched it gently. "Poor thing," he murmured softly, "you have suffered enough today." He knew of a certain herb that grew nearby, one his mother had taught him to recognize long ago, useful for wounds and fevers. He walked slowly to the edge of the forest, still cradling the fox, and found the plant growing low among the ferns. Its leaves were broad and cool to the touch, and when he crushed them gently between his fingers, they released a clean, bitter scent. Sitting down upon a smooth stone, he applied the herb to the wounded paw, pressing it gently, murmuring soft words of comfort. The little fox grew still, watching him, and gradually the pain seemed to subside. As he worked, the man became aware of something unusual. He looked up, slowly, and saw them. At the edge of the clearing, half hidden in shadow, stood several foxes. They were larger, older, their eyes bright and watchful, their bodies tense with barely contained emotion. Parents, he thought, watching over their lost child. His heart softened further, for he too was a father, and he understood the fierce protectiveness of a parent's love. With great care, he set the baby fox down upon the ground and stepped back, giving it freedom. For a moment, the cub sat motionless, as if uncertain, and then, with a sudden joyful bound, it ran toward the waiting foxes. The reunion was tender beyond words. The cub pressed its small body against the larger foxes, licking their faces with wild abandon, and they, in turn, nuzzled it gently, checking every inch of its small form. The man watched, smiling softly, and then turned to leave. But as he walked away, he felt the weight of many eyes upon his back, and he knew, somehow, that he had been seen. The days passed as they always did, one melting into the next, like snow into water. Spring deepened, the air growing warmer, the rice fields turning green, and life continued its quiet rhythm. But in the man's household, a shadow had fallen. His son, his only child, had fallen ill. It began with a fever, mild at first, barely noticeable, but then it grew strange and persistent. The boy grew pale, listless, his eyes losing their brightness, and no remedy seemed to help. The parents tried everything they knew: herbal teas, cool compresses, prayers at the local shrine, but the illness only deepened. Finally, desperate and afraid, they sent for a great physician from the city. He was an old man, renowned for his wisdom, his beard long and white as silk, his movements slow and deliberate. He examined the boy carefully, feeling his pulse, studying his eyes, listening to the rhythm of his breathing. At last he spoke, his voice grave. "This illness is rare and difficult to cure. There's only one remedy I know that might succeed." The parents leaned forward, hope and fear mingling. "What is it?" the father asked, his voice barely a whisper. The old physician looked at them with sad eyes. "The liver of a live fox, prepared in a certain way, is the only medicine that may restore him." The words fell like stones into water. The mother covered her mouth, tears forming, and the father felt his heart contract with pain. He remembered the baby fox, the way it had looked at him with trusting eyes, the joy of its reunion with its family. And now, to save his own child, he must take the life of another. The moral weight of it pressed upon him heavily, but what choice did he have? His son lay dying. Still, he could not bring himself to hunt the fox personally. Such a thing felt wrong, a betrayal, as if he would be repaying kindness with cruelty. So he spoke with a neighbour, a man who made his living hunting in the mountains, who knew the ways of foxes and their dens. "Please," the father said, his voice thick with emotion. "I would not ask this if I had any other choice, but my son is dying, and this is the only cure." The neighbour was a hard man, weathered by years outdoors, but even he was moved by the father's distress. "I will do what I can," he promised, and they agreed upon a generous payment. The neighbour left at dawn, carrying his traps and his knowledge, disappearing into the forested hills. The father returned home, heavy-hearted, and sat beside his son's bed. The boy's breathing was shallow, laboured, his small hand cool to the touch, and the father wept silently, praying to any spirits who might listen. Night fell, soft and dark, the moon rising pale and distant. The household grew quiet, holding its breath, waiting. And then, just as the temple bell tolled the hour of the rat, there came a knock at the door. The father rose quickly, hope surging, and opened the door with trembling hands. A man stood there, wrapped in a dark travelling cloak, his face shadowed, unfamiliar. "I have been sent by your neighbour," the stranger said quietly, his voice low and formal. "He has obtained what you requested." He held out a small wrapped bundle, and the father took it with both hands, feeling the weight of it, the finality. "Thank you," he whispered, though the words felt hollow. The stranger bowed once, deeply, and then turned and disappeared into the night, moving with unusual speed and grace. The father stood in the doorway, watching the darkness, and felt a strange unease settle over him. Something about the messenger had been odd, something he could not quite name. But his son was dying, and there was no time to wonder. He brought the bundle inside, and his wife unwrapped it with shaking hands. There, preserved as the physician had instructed, was the liver of a fox. Fresh, prepared with care, and somehow, inexplicably, still warm. They sent word immediately to the great physician, and he arrived before dawn, his face unreadable in the lamplight. He examined the liver carefully, nodding slowly, and then began the delicate work of preparing the medicine. It took hours, the old man's hands moving with practiced precision, grinding, mixing, chanting soft prayers. Finally, as the first light of dawn touched the eastern sky, the medicine was ready. They lifted the boy's head gently and gave him the bitter concoction to drink. He swallowed with difficulty, grimacing, but he took it all. And then they waited. The minutes passed like hours, the parents kneeling beside the bed, watching their son's pale face for any sign of change. And then, slowly, colour began to return to his cheeks. His breathing deepened, grew easier, and his eyes fluttered open, clear and aware. "Mother," he whispered, his voice weak but steady. The mother wept, pressing her face to his hand, and the father bowed his head in profound relief. The physician smiled gently, gathering his things, and left them to their joy. Later that morning, after the boy had fallen into peaceful sleep, the father went to find his neighbour, to thank him, and to pay him as promised. He found the man sitting outside his house, sharpening his hunting knife, looking tired and frustrated. "Ah," the neighbour said, looking up, "I am glad you have come, for I must apologise." The father stopped, confused. "Apologise? But why? The liver was delivered. My son is saved." The neighbour shook his head slowly. "I tried my utmost. Truly I did. I set every trap I know, searched every den, but I found nothing. The foxes eluded me completely. I came to bring you my regrets, but now you say the liver was delivered." The father felt a chill run through him. "A man came last night. He said you had sent him. He brought the liver, fresh and prepared." The neighbour's face went pale. "I sent no one. I obtained nothing. I do not know who came to your door." They stared at each other, understanding slowly dawning. That night, after the household had settled, the father sat alone in the garden. The moon was full and bright, casting silver light across the stones, and the air was sweet with the scent of night-blooming flowers. He was thinking of the mysterious messenger, of the strangeness of the delivery, when he sensed a presence nearby. He looked up and saw her. A woman stood in the moonlight, young and beautiful, her hair long and dark as a summer night, her eyes bright with an otherworldly light. She wore simple robes, the colour of autumn leaves, and she moved with a grace that was not quite human. The father rose slowly, his heart beating fast, but he felt no fear, only wonder. The woman approached, and then bowed deeply, her hands folded before her. "Forgive me for intruding upon your peace," she said softly, her voice like wind through pine branches. "Who are you?" the father asked gently. She looked at him with eyes that held both sadness and gratitude. "I am the mother of the cub you saved, the one you freed with such kindness, when you could have kept it, or sold it, or harmed it." Understanding flooded through him, and with it, a wave of emotion so powerful he could barely speak. "Then the liver," he whispered. She nodded slowly, tears glistening in her eyes. "When I learned of your son's illness, and of the cure that was needed, I knew what I must do." She paused, her voice breaking slightly. "You saved my child, and returned it to me, when others would have been cruel. You showed compassion when compassion was rare. I had to repay that kindness, even though the cost was beyond measure." The father felt tears running down his face. "You gave your own child's life to save mine." She bowed her head. "It was the only way. My husband, in the guise of the messenger, brought the liver to your door. We could do no less, after what you did for us." The father sank to his knees, overwhelmed. "This is too much, too great a sacrifice. I am not worthy of such a gift." The foxwoman shook her head gently. "Kindness is never wasted, and gratitude must answer gratitude. This is the way of things, the balance we keep." She looked up at the moon, her face serene despite her sorrow. "My child's life was brief, but it was filled with love, and because of your compassion, it died serving a greater purpose. There is honour in that, and peace." The father could not speak, could only weep for the beauty and the tragedy of what had been done. The foxwoman stepped closer and placed her hand gently on his head. Do not grieve for us, kind man. We are creatures of the in-between places, of moonlight and shadow. We understand impermanence better than most. All things pass, all things change, but kindness echoes through the ages. She stepped back, bowing once more. May your son live long and grow strong, and may he learn from you the value of compassion. And then, before he could respond, she was gone. One moment she stood before him, and the next, only moonlight remained, and the soft rustle of leaves in the night breeze. The father remained in the garden for a long time, feeling the weight and wonder of what had transpired. He thought of the baby fox, healed and freed, and of the mother's sacrifice, so complete and selfless. He thought of the strange circle that had been drawn, kindness given, returned, transformed into something sacred. And he understood, perhaps for the first time, that the world was far more mysterious and beautiful than he had ever imagined. That there were threads connecting all living things, invisible but unbreakable, woven through with compassion and sacrifice. And that every act of kindness, no matter how small, sent ripples outward into the vast ocean of existence. In the days that followed, the boy recovered completely. His strength returned, his laughter rang through the house, and life resumed its gentle rhythm. But the father never forgot what had happened. He told his son the story when the boy was old enough to understand, and taught him to honor all living creatures, to see the sacred in the small and overlooked. And sometimes, on nights when the moon was full, the father would sit in his garden and watch the shadows. And occasionally, just occasionally, he would glimpse a fox at the edge of the trees, its eyes bright and knowing. And he would bow, and the fox would bow in return, and then vanish like mist into the darkness. A silent acknowledgement, a continuing gratitude that needed no words. The seasons turned, as they always do, spring giving way to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, winter back to spring again. Years passed, gently and without haste. The boy grew into a young man, kind and thoughtful like his father, and he too learned to see the world with compassionate eyes. He would tell the story to his own children one day, and they would tell it to theirs, and the memory of the fox's sacrifice would live on, a testament to the power of gratitude and the bonds that connect all living things. And so the story passes from one generation to the next, like a lantern carried through the darkness, reminding us that kindness is never wasted, that compassion creates circles of grace, and that even the smallest act of mercy can ripple outward to touch the lives of those we will never know. The world is filled with hidden connections, with debts of gratitude paid in unexpected ways, with sacrifices made in silence, and with love that transcends the boundaries of species and understanding. We live among mysteries, surrounded by beings whose inner lives we can only glimpse, and yet we are all bound together, threads in the same vast tapestry. The fox mother's gift was extraordinary, but perhaps, in its essence, it was simply an answer to the question we all must face. How do we honor the kindness we have received? How do we repay the gifts we cannot name? Sometimes, the answer lies in sacrifice. Sometimes, in simple daily acts of care. But always, always, the answer lies in remembering that we are all connected, that compassion given returns to us in unexpected forms, and that the world is made more beautiful by every act of grace. And so, beneath the turning of the seasons, beneath the rise and fall of human lives, beneath the countless small dramas of existence, there moves a deeper current. A current of gratitude, of recognition, of honour given and returned. The father never forgot the sight of the foxwoman, standing in his garden beneath the full moon, her face serene despite her sorrow, her grace undiminished by her loss. She had given everything, and had done so without bitterness, only with the quiet dignity of one who understands that some debts must be paid, no matter the cost. And he, in his own small way, tried to live up to that example. He was kinder to strangers, more patient with those who struggled, more aware of the suffering of creatures great and small. He planted trees that he would never see grow tall. He gave to those who could not repay him. He saved insects from drowning, and set them gently on dry ground. These were small things, humble things, but they were his way of honouring the gift he had received. And perhaps, in the unseen realm where spirits dwell, the fox mother knew and was glad. In the village, the story became legend. People spoke of it in hushed voices, marvelling at the depth of the fox's gratitude and at the mysterious ways of the world. Some said that on certain nights, when the moon was full and the air was still, you could see foxes gathered near the man's house, sitting in silent vigil, as if keeping watch over the family that had shown such kindness. And no fox ever troubled that household again, not in the fields, not in the gardens, as if some invisible protection had been placed over them, born from gratitude and sacrifice. The father lived to be very old, his hair white as winter snow, his face lined with the marks of a life well lived. And on the night before he died, as he lay in his bed with his family gathered around him, he looked toward the window. There, in the moonlight, standing at the edge of the garden, was the foxwoman. She had not aged, as spirits do not age, and she stood with the same quiet grace, the same serene beauty. Their eyes met across the distance, and she bowed deeply, a final acknowledgement, a final farewell. The old man smiled, and closed his eyes, and slipped peacefully away. And those who were with him in that moment said that just before he died, he whispered a single word: gratitude. And so the story ends, as all stories must, not with triumph or tragedy, but with the quiet closing of a circle. Kindness given, returned, honoured. A life saved, another sacrificed, balance maintained in the turning of the world. And somewhere, in the forests and hills, among the shadows and moonlight, the foxes remember. They remember the man who freed a wounded cub. They remember the mother who gave everything. They remember the sacred debt, paid in full, with love. And they honour it still. The seasons continue their eternal dance, spring to summer, summer to autumn, autumn to winter, winter back to spring. The cherry blossoms fall like snow, the rice fields turn from green to gold, the mountains wear their crown of white, and life continues, quietly, beautifully. And in the hearts of those who hear this tale, something shifts, something opens. A recognition that we are all connected, that every creature has its own dignity, its own capacity for love and sacrifice. that the world is filled with hidden grace, with debts of gratitude woven through the fabric of existence, with kindness that echoes across time, creating ripples we may never see, but which touch countless lives in ways we cannot know. This is the lesson of the fox's gratitude, not that we should expect reward for our kindness, but that kindness itself creates something sacred, something that binds us together across the boundaries of form and species and understanding. We are all part of a greater whole, all threads in the same vast tapestry, and every act of compassion strengthens the weave. So may we walk gently through the world, aware of the web of life that surrounds us, honouring the connections we share with all beings, and offering kindness freely, without thought of return. For in the end, it is not what we acquire that matters, not wealth or fame or power, but the love we give, the compassion we show, the grace we extend to those in need. These are the things that endure, the things that ripple outward, creating circles of blessing that continue long after we are gone. And so, as the night deepens and the stars wheel slowly overhead, and the world settles into peaceful silence, we hold this story gently in our hearts. The story of a man's simple kindness and a fox's profound gratitude, and the sacred bond that formed between them, transcending language and form, reaching into the very essence of what it means to live with honour, to give without expecting, to sacrifice without bitterness, and to recognise, always, that we are never truly alone. We are surrounded by life, by consciousness in countless forms, by beings who feel and love and remember, just as we do. And when we treat them with kindness, we honour the sacred thread that connects us all. The moon sets, slowly, quietly, and the eastern sky begins to pale. Another day is coming, filled with its own small challenges, its own opportunities for grace. But for now, in this moment of stillness, let us rest in the beauty of the story, in the wisdom it carries, in the gentle reminder it offers. That kindness matters, that gratitude is sacred, that all beings deserve our compassion, and that the bonds we form through love are stronger than death, and endure beyond the changing of seasons. The wind stirs softly through the pines, carrying with it the scent of earth and growing things, and somewhere in the distance, a temple bell rings once, twice, marking the passage of the hours. Peace settles over the land like a gentle blanket, and in that peace there is healing, there is rest, there is the quiet assurance that all is well. Sleep now beneath the watching stars, held in the embrace of the turning world, knowing that you too are part of this great tapestry, woven through with threads of light and love, connected to all that lives, honoured, precious, never alone. The foxes keep their vigil, the spirits watch over us, and the wheel of life turns on, carrying us gently, always gently, toward the dawn. And so the blossoms fall, the night grows still, and peace returns once more.